Hello, friends. This is another experience with Finale. Now, this is one of those opportunities that we have to really take advantage of the power of the software, but we're also going to be mostly confronting the problems of doing any type of engraving work. And you will notice this beautiful score in front of us right now. This is my score. This is my musical masterpiece that I want to give to the world. As you'll notice, I got my dynamics and my articulations in, and I'm feeling good about this piece. It's something that is beautiful to me. You can decide if it's beautiful looking to you. Not going to play it because I actually have no clue what it sounds like either at this point. So we'll notice some things right here. First off, there's collisions everywhere. Look at this. So you have collisions that are happening between the staves, and you have them colliding between the systems. You also have collisions of text at the top of the page. Everything is wrong. This is actually terrible in all sorts of ways. So we're going to make this look a little bit better. So there are some conventions with the instruments that we've chosen. These are the ones for your ensemble, the PRO ensemble. So first we're going to deal with all the collisions. Then we'll deal with some things that are kind of important but are missing right now. And then after that, we'll clean it up even a bit more. So let us start with some conventions for each of the instruments. So the flute, we're not going to use octave signs for the flute. That's just not something that we do, at least not often. So this has to stay up that high. That causes some problems. First off, you'll notice that this text is not black, it's silver gray. That means it's not going to appear when it's printed. If you're not going to have an arranger, you might though, because you might be arranging a piece. You might be arranged by and write your name. If you're not going to use that piece, and by the way, if you are arranging, make sure you put the actual composer above it too. But if you're not arranging anything, push delete. You don't need that, so you don't have to worry about that type of collision because that word never will exist. Subtitle, I don't know if you'll use a subtitle or not. Maybe you will, maybe you won't, but I'm going to get rid of that as well. Okay, so these have to be high notes. The clarinet also does not use any sort of octave sign, so those low notes, they have to be there. The violin doesn't often use ledger lines, so we're going to keep that too. The cello does not use ledger lines, so we have to deal with all of these issues right here. The first way to deal with them is we're going to go up here to the second tool. From the left, the staff tool. If you're on Mac, it's in a different place. It's on a floating panel. We're going to go to the staff tool, and you'll notice that it has all these little handles everywhere. So all you have to do is take one of these handles and drag downward. And if you notice, now we have that space right there. But looking ahead, well, there's a few things that happened in that moment. But looking ahead, something really important, you'll notice it only happens in the system. In other words, the group of staves that are all part of the same line. Every time we have a break, we're in a new system. So all these together are one system. The next group of staves is the next system. So all in this system, this one looks better. But if you look at the next one, there's a problem there. If I know that this is going to be a consistent problem, you can actually click right here in that space between the time signature and the key signature, and it'll highlight the entire piece, and you can do big adjustments that way if you want to. Most of the time, that's not going to work. It's kind of lazy to do that. But if there's like at least a basic distance that you know is going to be pretty much always going to be needed throughout the piece, for example, I noticed this violin is tying for billion measures, then it's probably a good idea just to click there in between that space right there. You can also click in the space right before the clef. In fact, it looks like you can click on the clef area as long as you're in the staff tool. Then you should be able to move that entire thing. The cello doesn't look like it actually butts with anything at this moment. But we can use the piano staff right here is obviously going way high. Now I haven't mentioned the piano. I'm sorry, there's some email dinging, so let's get rid of that. For this piano right here, we could definitely give us some space and probably will want that space. But unlike all these other instruments that need the ledger lines, we can use Octava markings for our piano. So I'm going to move this down a little bit just for my sanity right now. And I notice that this goes for a very long time. And by the way, if you want to make some of these adjustments, the stuff we're doing right now would be really nice in this page view because we're looking at what the final score will be. But what we're about to do is going to be a kind of repair that might be easier seen in what we call scroll view up here. So if I go up here, Control E is a fast way to just run between these two views. I can go to scroll view, and now I have a view that just kind of goes always forward. So still kind of scary to me right here, so I'm just going to give myself some space so I can see it better. But what I want to do is go through all of this. Even though this starts in a decent range, I could keep this as it is, or if I find it just that it's fine to have this all as one line, we can move all of this down. Just remember what you're moving down in octave at this moment so that we can put Octava markings there. I'm going to go through it. I suppose I'll just scroll through slowly just to make sure everything's up in that high register, and yes it is, because I'm one of those copy and paste composer types that you should never be. I'm going to push the 8 button if you remember that from before, but I'm going to go back out of staff tool, go back to my select tool, push 8 to move this down an octave. Now this is actually kind of high still. Maybe I'll push it one more time, go down one more octave. And then that feels really comfortable, probably easy for somebody to read. I mean, they could have read the last one, but let's make it easier for everybody. If you'll notice though that we have these notes right here, those are down pretty low. So maybe what I would do is I could bring this up to where it was originally, and then from here on I can make the marking I want. We're going to go to Smart Shape. If you noticed, I pushed it twice, so I'm going to actually go to this 15 right here, 15 MA tool. So I'm going to go through and just highlight this and go, go, go. So unfortunately, I won't scroll with you as you highlight in this way, but it'll be easy just to drag and just keep on dragging it through. All the way till it stops, which for us is never, ever, ever. Now you can't change the treble clef to have like a 15 above it or an 8 above it. That's not something a pianist will be expecting, and they'll probably get mad at you for that. But what we can do is what I've done right here. Bring that 15 MA all the ways across. We'll have to format where that is later, and you can see, woohoo, we're going all the ways up and down with that 15 MA. Don't worry about that on this page. Let's worry about that on the other page, on our actual page view. And just to clarify right here, I'm going to actually move the beginning of this a little bit forward so that it's completely encapsulating that note like that. Okay, so same thing with the bass. Let's see how far up we need. On this one, that C looks kind of okay, but then after that we have this little thing that is pretty low. So I'm going to highlight over that note right here, that low note, and I'm going to go, go, go. You'll notice it's all very low. I could just skip to the end and then hold the shift key. If you didn't notice from before when I did that, you hold the shift key. I'm going to push 9. 9 is going to go up. That is attainable. I think I could deal with that. Now it's a very similar range to this one, so don't let go of that highlight. So I push 9, and now I remember, okay, this is where I start my octave down. And here we go. Going all the ways across. Oops. And of course, if we zoomed out, this would be faster, and maybe that would have been a good idea, but hey, we're almost done. Zooming out, you can find under the view options, and there's keyboard shortcuts for that as well. So control equal, control minus, but if you're really looking at your keyboard, you'll notice that's the plus and minus. on your keyboard. Those are just normally accessed by Shift, but the idea is that you click Control and you're plussing and minusing, zooming in and zooming out. Okay, good. So this is all great, except I have one personal issue, one beef here. I like when it says 8VA, I'd prefer to say 8VB if it's below the staff, because for me that makes a lot more sense. So what I'm going to do is go to Smart Shape Options, Octave down. Now I feel like this is not the right situation for us, but this is one way to do it where we can go right here and change that to 15. So it has a whole bunch of things you could replace it with, but we're going to go with 8VB here. And that's really what I want to have happen there. So now it says 8VB. Now I'm happy. I think there might be another place to do that that might be a little less deeper into the mechanics of what we're looking at, but that is one way to get what we wanted here, the 8VB. Just off the top of my head. Okay, so you can see there's collisions here still, but we're not going to worry about that view. I'm going to click Control and E and go back to my normal view, and oh, so much better. So much better until we look at the page 2. Then we see that that 15 VA went up there because I was totally unsteady as I was moving it up around, so I'm just going to bring it down. If you notice, it puts in parentheses, so we don't have to worry about that issue. You'll notice the 8VB is colliding with every possible thing in life. We'll deal with that in a moment, but for now, let's bring these a little bit closer to the staff so that we can avoid unnecessary collisions or unnecessary spacing issues. Bringing that all in. Okay, I feel good about that. All right, so we have some more intra-system, inside the system edits to make. I'm going to go back to that staff tool, and I'm going to go, ooh, that's at the top. We're going to deal with that in a moment. But actually, it's looking not too shabby. Maybe we don't have anything inside of our staves that is going to be an issue anymore. So that's great. Let's go to between them, inter-system, if you want to put it that way. I'm going to go to the page layout tool. It's a different tool for this. There's a lot more you can do with the staff tool. We're not going to deal with that at the moment. But for now, this one, you actually can take the systems as big blocks and move them up and down. So let's move that down. And good, we're not colliding anymore. That makes me happy. And, well, that's a weird big space right there. Well, that was the original spacing between the staves from before, but now that this is up high, I don't really have to worry about that anymore. And by the way, this is a good way for you to move that down right here so that the my score is seen. Technically a lot of composers won't even put something up at the top like this. So maybe you could just delete it. Or what I've seen composers do sometimes put it at the bottom because sometimes there's a little bit less going on at the bottom of your score. So I bring it as close as possible to that top thing. We want to maximize our use of the space that we have here. All right, all of these collisions between the systems appear to be gone. You might notice an extra page pops up once in a while as we're formatting. That's okay. That's actually where we used to have music, but now we have reduced our piece down to a few lines. It will disappear at some point as we're editing, I'm sure, and if not, well, it will probably not print, and if it does, well, Merry Christmas, you got something new. Okay, so we have a lot of things going on. Now, if I wanted to be bold, I could try to get something in this space by squishing everything here as much as possible, squishing everything here. The problem is that with all of these extreme highs and extreme lows in my instruments, that was very on purpose for this exercise. I don't think that's going to be a wise idea to attempt to do that. I think it'll be a pain in the neck. Now, wait a second. There's something happening here in the piano that I don't like. It's going to go up really high up here. So what I might do on this one note right here, and we're going to start going into some of the micro edits now. Well, we could do one thing where we do a cross-staffed, bringing this to the other side, but it's not beamed to anything. So what I would probably end up doing here on this one is I could do layers, and that would be probably the best solution for this note. Who even knows what this note is? I'm going to click on it double, and then I'm going to hold shift and go down. Aha, it's a D, a very high D. Honestly, that could be totally played in the right hand without a problem. I'm going to put it right there and go down to my next one. By the way, to go between the staves, I'm going to do control down. I'm going to push R for rest. I'm just going to let them deal with it over there. Hopefully, honestly, it's not even going to sound like a musical line, but if you want to keep the integrity of the line, you could do some kind of indication between those staves showing that it is part of the line, maybe a dotted line, I don't know. Or you could do the, stems up, stems down with the layers that you have right down here. Okay, so that's one issue. I think we're good with all the piano issues, but you might have noticed as we were going along, the cello does have some pretty high notes. And I think we could actually work on that. So we're going up high. This part right here, this is where I start feeling a bit uneasy, going and staying up in that G register. So there's two options that we have. We could do the tenor clef. Let's try that first because that's something that they enjoy. So we have these highest notes right here. Going to the Clef Tool this time. Lots of new tools this time. I'm going to double click here and look at all these. So we know that cellists are totally okay with a tenor clef until they get to a certain point, then they need to use a treble clef. So if you notice, a lot of this in the tenor clef is actually going in ledger lines anyway, so probably what's the point? Let's just go to the treble clef. That makes a lot of sense to me. Now, I would keep using the treble clef until there's a point where it didn't seem like it was helpful anymore. So let's go all the ways, maybe we could just start the new measure with it, and that'd probably be okay. By the way, you'll notice that as I click in, there's numbers right up here. You can actually just click those numbers while you highlight something. You don't have to go into this menu. So if I click 1, it'll be a treble clef here, or I can do it that way. So you can see that we're going through like this, and then I'm just going to switch over the bass clef right here. That's fine. A measure is a good place to switch off. If you want to include these, simply highlight. I can push 1 right there, and maybe you want to do it that way where you just make the break right here for the middle C. Now you'll notice this is really helpful because I can highlight in notes like this. There's only this high note, and then you'll notice down here that it goes down to a low C. So I can actually just highlight the one note and do treble clef. And oh my goodness, what a lot of highlighting we're going to have to do right now. But again, if you weren't highlighting, this would be a pain in the neck. So I'm just highlighting those beats and helping out. Now you'll notice that this composer is a very copy and paste composer, as I said, and copy and pasted the same exact thing over and over and over again. How lazy. But that in this situation might be a blessing because I can just simply copy and paste what I've done so far right here and go at it. All right. My old school 2014 has some loading issues, I suppose, but they're small and don't take much time. All right. Well, that would have been really hard. Thankfully, I could just copy and paste that all. All right, now I'm feeling a bit more confident. In fact, I'm feeling confident to the point that I could probably, if I wanted to, make that space between the violin and the cello a bit smaller, but it is a pretty standard distance there, I'm pretty sure. Let's find out. Yeah, 1 inch. I don't really need to move it inward anymore, but if I wanted to, I could now. I could just look at this and go inward. But again, that's starting to feel cramped, so I'm like not really into the idea of that. Maybe a little bit, like that much, I would be okay with, but probably not too much more than that. If I'm really trying to save space. Okay, so now we have a decently spaced score, no collisions, and it reveals serious problems with my score. I thought I had a whole bunch of dynamics and articulations in my music But now I'm realizing that I don't. And this is going to be a thing you'll notice when you format is maybe you don't have as much as you thought you did. I don't even have a dynamics for the violin to start off, which is a real shame because that is my true mezzo forte line. And maybe this one up here probably should be about this loud. I think that's good. Now you'll notice that these two are taking up a lot of space, so I might have to like move it in like that a little bit. But now that I have these dynamics there, I've changed my mind. Maybe I want that cello back. So it's good to do these formatting choices after you have all the details in, especially if you're trying to condense. But let's deal with some of these. Oops. You can actually type these in too, but there we go. My perfectionist in me has to do that. So maybe I do want this to be a really high loud note always. Well, what I can go right here and go with mezzo forte. If I truly believe that, truly 100% believe that, it's going to always be that 100% of the time. I'm going to just throw in sempre there and write that there. I wouldn't do this often though, because if you're doing that, that's mean to the performer if you actually do care about expression. But there might be some circumstances where you want to say, yeah, we're gonna just pump it out really loud the entire time. But I think there's some more expressive things we want to do throughout. So let's start with the violin just being checked off. It's done. We're just gonna say you're always loud and just go at it, have fun. Which gives us some time to look at other instruments like the flute. So the flute starts out with some nice dynamics. And then we go from forte, we hold that through, and then, oh, piano. Well, it looks like I was looking at page 2, and then looking at page 1 and not noticing the connection again. Maybe Control E can help us there. So now we go from forte to piano. I have so many questions about that piano. Did we go from loud to soft, or was it suddenly soft? Well, option number 1, if it's a decrescendo, where does the decrescendo happen? Does it happen here? Perhaps it does. If I want it subito, I'm going to go over here. I'm going to go to the MF tool, which is our expression tool. You've been seeing me go there. And there's a subito piano right here, but if you're like me, you might actually want to change this default. And maybe you'll want to do something like this. And what I like about doing P sub instead of subito P, even though the alignment looks a little bit funky here, which I can actually change that. In fact, I'll show you how to do that. Go to Edit, Positioning, and Justification. Let's move it to the left now. Oof, so much better, right? Now I can line it up perfectly. But what I like about this is that the thing that I really want them to see first is that we got soft. And then after that, the reminder, oh yeah, that's a sudden softness. So I like it this way better. It helps them see it immediately. If you really want the sub be there, like to emphasize the sub part of it, want to put that first, I would get rid of the ito part and just go sub P. Everybody knows what it means when you see subito with those 3 first letters. Everyone knows. Okay, so we got really loud, we suddenly got soft. We have this. What in the world's going on there? Well, it makes a lot of sense if you look at the page. The person's like, well, it gets louder, and then it gets louder more because, again, the system break, they're not paying attention to how things are flowing. So going back with Control E to my scroll view, now I can make a little better of a decision here. If it starts on that and then keeps going low, why don't I just make the whole thing one big crescendo like this? And we get really loud to this note. I don't even know what that volume is. So you'll have to choose what that is going to be. That's a little too long of one to say is an expressive marking. Expressive markings don't go for that many measures. So let's give us a destination here. We get really soft. What? Into a fortissimo. That hardly makes sense. So if I want this to be fortissimo, which maybe I do, but I'm going from a mezzo forte and decrescendoing into it. Maybe I need an end dynamic here. So let's go piano. I'm gonna get, I could go to the smart shape tool, give myself some space. We don't have that collision there. And then now I have the fortissimo, just like I did with sub piano. I think I'm going to duplicate this dynamic right here so I can have another version of it. And I'm going to just push the space bar, go to text font, and do sub here. Sudden fortissimo. And again, you saw what I did before for the alignment. If I'm going to use this more than once, it might be especially interesting to do this. I'm just going to justify it to the left so that I don't have to worry about formatting that again and again. Okay, because the default for something like a normal dynamic is to kind of get it right beneath the note. Of course, the sub ruins that spacing. Okay, good. So the clarinet line, I wrote a mezzo piano. But what my thought was originally was like I can have this one kind of follow the dynamics of the first instrument. Maybe be just a notch louder, but I want all those crescendos and decrescendos is something I'm thinking right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to highlight the entire line of the flute. I'm going to click copy. Now, this is something that I love about Finale. You have this filter right here. So I'm going to go edit filter. You have this F for filter, Shift Alt Control. Might be different, of course, on a Mac. But right here, I can have all of these things. This is what you're normally having happen without a filter. But I'm going to click none, and there will be nothing left here. What I want to do is only have, well, what we're talking about are crescendos and decrescendos. Those are smart shapes. Those are the things, a smart shape is anything that you can drag across multiple notes, anything that stretches. So I want the smart shapes that are assigned to the beats. A smart shape assigned to the note would be like the slur. I don't really want slurs because I have staccato notes here. So I'm going to go smart shapes assigned to beats. I'm going to click OK. And now I'm going to go right here. You'll notice that since I exited out of the filter, now I'm using the filter. I'm going to copy and paste. I got all of them throughout the entire piece just given to me right there. Because these two parts for me are inextricably linked together. Even though they musically look like they shouldn't be. Maybe you will have an example where that is a true statement. So I'm going to go, of course, adjust all these things. And now I just want my end dynamics. Probably going to stay with the fortissimo here. If you're using a mouse, there's so many keyboard shortcuts you can do. You know what? Let's just do the piano subito here. So I can go edit, filter, and I can also include right here expressions, dynamics, expressive text, and so forth. So let's just copy and paste that down here. And you know what? I think I want the clarinet to get a little bit louder than the mezzo forte on this moment. So let's go forte here. And then, you know what? This part at the end does make sense for what I am hoping for. So let's just do these two right here. And good. That is exactly what I'm hoping for a very musical performance. I'll deal with the formatting when I actually get to the page view. All right, so the cello. Look at this beautiful cello part. It has a nice forte and then it just goes without any expression. Well, we've already talked about how to do some copy and pasting. So what I'm going to do is start putting in these things. So maybe it's more of an original line. I'll very quickly just throw in some good things here. Again, you should actually think about these things, but for now, I am just trying to get this good and done for us. You'll notice some weird formatting issues happening. Oops, let's go softer here. Sometimes Finale does a weird thing whenever you don't see like the normal sign of the cursor. It means that you just have to click in and out again. One of those weird 2014 glitches that I don't know if it's been resolved in the future editions. So again, that whole octave sign thing is going up and down because I was so terrible at dragging that out earlier. Sorry, maybe you can drag it better than I can. I don't know. And you can move them, of course, during this entire time. Let's just, I don't know. You know what you're doing. You can fill out the rest of this. It'll be fine. And then with the piano, let's look at what we have here. So we have a mezzo piano and 2 staves, but wait a second, the piano is only one instrument. Unless we want to have 2 different dynamics in 2 different hands, all we need is the one dynamic in the center. In fact, you can center the dynamic in the center for your performers, and then you can go on your way with everything that you need to be doing. Make sure you apply all the dynamics to this top staff, because that's where you have your dynamics coming out of. And it will actually play in both staves this way. That is how Finale designed it. So maybe we just, do what we need to do here. All right. So as I was going through all of this, making all my edits and everything, finding joy in the journey, I was going forth, finishing up this project, as you see. Ooh, that is a long J crescendo. And I ended up here at this really soft dynamic. And then I accidentally did something like this and I deleted that measure. So I was like, well, maybe I need to get that measure back. And I just I did that, I dragged over it because, honestly, I'm just copy and pasting stuff. But wait a second, why isn't it working? Now, this is the one thing you need to remember about filters. You got to turn them off if you want to use the other options. If you want to do a full copy and paste, you do that. Now, these are not the notes I had originally, but for the example, copy and pasting with the filter, you got to turn it off or else your copy and pasting won't work anymore. So be careful of that. All right, now that I've added my details in, I'm going to do Control E, back to page view, and holy moly, some of my dynamics worked out great, some of them didn't. I'm just going to go in here with the staff tool and simply move some things around. Make sure everything looks neat and tidy, that we don't have collisions between our staves. And you'll notice that 15 MA skyrocketed up there because of some of my silly choices while I was in scroll view. So if you want to adjust them in scroll view as you see them go up and down, maybe it's a good idea. Now I'm noticing some issues that I'm getting as I move my dynamics around. Notice that on the clarinet, I never did anything to these. And I can click in with selection tool to anything like this and make little adjustments here and there as I see them. That's a little bit low for my taste. All right, you'll notice that this one's not the best either. So some of these are going to modify more in a moment. Bring that down. And you're noticing that I'm only ending up with 1 per page now, which is not something I'm excited about because I want to try to conserve space if at all possible. So, and sometimes on 2014, again, this is an older one, you'll notice that it moved it to another staff and there's no page there. It's very easy to get the page up, but we'll actually bring that back in just a moment. So why did we lose all of those? Well, it's because the way I had it spaced before didn't give me any of that wiggle room that I needed. So I'm going to push up there, and now they're in the same place. You'll notice I have about this much room left on this staff. Is it enough? It doesn't seem like it is enough. So now comes the questions of condensing, just to make sure that this all fits. There's this cello space that I had before. I'm going to use that cello space. I'm going to try to give myself a little bit of spacing. And even between my piano staves, it looks like I have a little bit of space there. I have freed up enough room, I think. Lovely. Same thing here. Again, you could solve all these problems by simply getting rid of this my score. Now you're probably seeing the reason why I might want to get rid of that. But I'm going to be one of those stubborn people who doesn't do that, so I can show you these spacing issues. So looks like that doesn't look great down there. This one also could be moved a little bit down. In fact, that one goes way down, which I'll deal with in a moment. But first, let's get that second staff back over here. So we're going to go like right there, go down like that. And holy moly, look at all that stuff going on there. Okay. Yeah, lots of issues going on. Look at that down there. So maybe I should have done that in page view instead of scroll view because these are kind of annoying me right now. All right, you'll notice that this is way high up. I can move that down to the center. We still have an octave collision right there. Can we move that down enough? Not quite. So let's condense all these a little bit more. Make a little bit less space here, a little bit less space here. Something else we could do on this full score page is actually reduce the page size, and that would be something that wouldn't be a problem on a score. You wouldn't want to do that on a part. In fact, we might even look at what that does for us in just a moment. Okay, this is looking a lot better for us right now. You'll notice that this is too high for my score. So annoying. You might as well just delete those at the top because it wastes a lot of space that you need. Precious top of the score space. All right, I'm feeling a lot better about this. A trick I taught you last time is you can actually go over any of your dynamics and go plugins, TG tools, align move dynamics, and choose the one that makes sense in the situation. And for all of these, that's what I'm going to do. I want this one to be not colliding, that mental forte, so I did the one that was closest. This one, I don't want everything to go back up into that again, so I'm going to do the farthest distance, and so on and so forth. That would be the way I approach which one of these options I choose. I like nearest element when I'm doing this type of formatting unless I see obvious issues like the one I have right here. Okay, so that is part one of a pretty long tutorial on formatting. So we're going to get back into this again and talk about more of the printing and doing parts. So after doing all of this final editing, I will see you there. So you kind of get the gist of what I'm doing here. So you'll notice I did it for the entire line right there. And I'm going to push this down a little bit. That's a shame. Let's bring this back up a little bit. In fact, this might be a good opportunity to show you how to do that last thing I was saying. This is the percentage tool, it's the resize tool. If I click in a space that's not part of a staff, like up here, I'm going to change it maybe to 90% and just do the entire piece, page 1 through the end. And you'll notice it's way smaller. And now I have a lot more space on my page to work with, so now I can do it this way. So that might be an easy thing to do in your music. And holy cow, we even got 2 of them on that first page with that. So you might want to put your score at 90% or something like that. It might be a good idea. Okay. So, by the way, there's nothing in this, so it's not necessary. All right. Well, I'm going to leave you here. We're going to do part 2 a bit later on.